Good morning. Welcome to the live streaming worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Riverside. I'm Bonnie McFarland, a member of this beloved church, and I will be your worship associate today. We invite you to worship with us with an open mind and an open heart. As we enter here into sacred time, created by our presence and shared interest in doing so, I invite you to get comfortable, turn down your phones or other distracting devices, make a conscious decision to set aside for this 1 hour self-protective walls you keep around your heart and your thoughts. Let us remember and explore together what has drawn us to this faith, or learn what this faith is about, and breathe. Although we are now a community largely connected by electronic means, one day we will be together again. Yet even now we are those seekers with the yearnings to learn, to understand, to make the world a better place, and with the same desire for fellowship. And so we breathe. Let go of the anxiety, the fears, the expectations of your own or others' making, and join us in this hour of beloved community. And so we breathe. Our opening hymn this morning is "We Would Be One." Please rise in spirit and join us, and because we are Zooming this, nobody will know if you sing off key. So all together now. We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching forth and leading, which finds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice, strive to make us free. For our call to worship, please read with me one of our Unitarian Universalist covenantal poems. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace to seek knowledge in freedom, to live in harmony with all the living creatures and plants of this earth. This do we affirm. Today, Grace Bruce is reading for us a sermon titled, Can We Get Along? Loving Your Political Opponent, written by Reverend Jessica Purple Rodela, minister of the Grand River Unitarian Congregation in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. The talk seemed particularly apt for our current U.S. societal climate as well. As Grace briefly described it, in these diverse times, it is more important than ever to recognize the commonality we all share, while being willing to engage in meaningful dialogue about our differences. Reverend Rodela explores the option of respecting the freedom of expression of all, regardless of whether we agree or disagree. Reverend Jessica Purple Rodela's sermon has been made available for our use through the Unitarian Universalist Association Worship Web resources. Jessica Purple Rodela grew up in the Canal Zone, Panama, during the tumultuous sovereignty negotiations of the 1970s. Her family returned to Texas in 1979. Over the years, she has lived in Virginia, Hawaii, and California. Before entering the ministry, she worked as a high school English teacher, a freelance writer, and a logistics analyst. In 2008, she graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School, a UU seminary in Chicago, where she co-founded the Calliope Initiative, an anti-racism forum, which was featured in the text, The Arc of the Universe, the Unitarian Universalist Association's anti-racism. I don't know what that means, doesn't sound good. Grace Bruce is a friend of UUCR. Grace says she wandered into our church one Sunday morning in 2018, and she found spiritual resonance in the profound simplicity of the 7 principles. And we have enjoyed her presence and her participation ever since. We have a few announcements we would like to share. We will mention several website and email addresses and phone numbers during announcements and other points before the sermon. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information so you won't have to be distracted copying things down right now. However, for those needing the information by auditory means, it will be announced verbally during the service. Chat time provides an opportunity to spend an hour talking among ourselves, usually beginning with the service, then wandering on to other topics. It's held on Zoom 1/2 hour after service every Sunday. During July and August, our services begin at 9, so chat time will begin today at 10:30. But to participate, you need a separate Zoom invitation. So please go to our website at uuchurchofriverside.org for the Zoom chat time registration, or email Lee Greer at president@uuchurchofriverside.org. As members of Inland Congregations United for Change, or ICUC, UUCR is being asked to pledge to get counted in the 2020 census and to vote in November to support an equitable tax system. Text PICO, P-I-C-O, ICUC to 40649 to find out how. While you're at it, you can also let ICUC know what issues we here at ICUC care about. If you're watching this live, you have figured out Zoom. But you may still have questions or know someone who does. On our website, under the About tab is a guide to using Zoom by phone, computer, and tablet. For the most current and reliable information related to the COVID-19 virus for our area, go to our website, go to the website for your county, public health department, or the state of California. You can find information and links on our website at uuchurchofriverside.org. Remember back in the good old days, back when we had things like Arts Walk, concerts, and other events that brought people into the church? Well, the Ways and Means Committee used to sell snack items, popcorn, granola bars, cookies, as fundraisers. Also on Sunday mornings, Social and Environmental Justice sold fair trade, coffee, teas, chocolates, olive oil, and other items. Well, some of those that didn't sell before March 15th are still here in the annex. I think the coffee is all sold now, but there is still a selection of fair trade teas and various snack items. If you're interested in adding some of these goodies to your pantry for a fair donation, please contact Dinah Rowe at ramblinrose22@yahoo.com or call or text her at 909-645-2885. Church Council will meet this Monday, tomorrow, at 11 a.m. by Zoom, hosted by Lee Greer. For questions about the meeting, contact Bill Rowe. He's vice president of the board, and as such, he chairs the Church Council meeting. To join the Zoom meeting, contact Lee at president@uuchurchofriverside.org. Dinah has started the monthly UUCR newsletter again. It will be out the first of every month. If you have something you would like covered or you want to write something for it, please let Dinah know. That's Dinah Rowe at ramblinrose22@yahoo.com, or call or text her at 909-645-2885. Wondering in this age of masks and distancing just how you could get more involved? Well, you can donate your talents and or sharpen your skills by volunteering to be a speaker, a worship associate like I am today, a musician, or a singer. Maybe you're great on Instagram and have noticed that we're not doing a lot there right now. We also have a Twitter account. Or maybe you know someone who you think would be a great speaker. If you're interested or have some ideas, please email worship@uuchurchofriverside.org. Let us acknowledge that we walk upon the traditional territories of the Moronga, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. In honor of the Moronga people, we, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. A flame within a chalice is a primary symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. Hans Deutsch, an Austrian artist, first brought together the chalice and the flame as a Unitarian symbol during his work with the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II. To Deutsch, the image had connotations of sacrifice and love. Our chalice reading today is Afraid of the Dark by Andrew Hakula. Hope I got that name right, Andrew. In sightless night, terrors draw near. Nameless fears of talon and tooth. Hopelessness yawns before us, an abyss, alone and unknown in the gloom, longing for the dawn. O sacred flame, blaze forth, wisdom brought to life, guides us. Guide us with the light of hope, the warmth of love, the beacon of purpose and meaning, because we are all afraid of the dark. Let there be light. Our next hymn is Spirit of Life. Please rise once more in spirit and join in.
Sweet in my heart.
Sharing joys and concerns is an important part of belonging to this beloved community. Each week, our caring network collects joys and concerns you wish to share. And on Sunday, we read what has been received. Please email or text your joys and concerns to Dinah Rowe, our caring network coordinator. Her email is ramblinrose22@yahoo.com. Or you can call or text her at 909-645-2885. It's said to be a Swedish proverb that shared joy is a double joy. Shared sorrow is half sorrow. The tradition is rooted in many societies. Throughout history, after battle, the warriors got together around a campfire and talked about their joys, their losses, their wins, the valor they witnessed, the bravery, and their losses. It helped them cope, survive. Today, critical incident debriefing techniques and many forms of therapy include a sharing of joys and concerns by whatever name. Joys, gratitudes, thankfulness, concerns, worries, mourning losses. On Sundays, we place a symbolic stone in our water chalice for the joys and concerns shared and in recognition of those we have not. One ongoing concern is our church that, like many across the country, has had a significant loss of income since the governor issued the stay-at-home order on March 15th. We've made many significant cuts and reductions, and even so, our financial situation remains difficult. Clarice expressed a concern about our environment and the lack of concern she sees in others. Kate Lewicki's mom went into the hospital a week ago Saturday, and she spent her 91st birthday there. And so we place a symbolic stone in our water chalice for the concerns shared and in recognition of all those we hold close and have not shared. On Wednesday this week, Kate Lewicki's mother was moved to rehab and is doing better. I am grateful that, as far as we know at this time, no one who is part of this church community has contracted the virus. It is said that joy shared is multiplied. We place a symbolic stone in our water chalice for the joys we have shared and all those that we have not. Let us hold each other in our thoughts and prayers for the many joys and cares we all have unspoken here today. Know that our beloved community is here for you, if from a safe distance at this time. Sharing our stewardship is one important way we can give of ourselves. Because of the extraordinary times we are going through, we are no longer collecting food and hygiene items at this time. However, our Social and Environmental Justice Committee is pursuing other ways for us to be involved in caring for those less fortunate than those around. Involved in caring for those less fortunate around us. Sharing our treasure. This offering is how we fund all that we do to minister to and care for our congregation and our beloved historic and aging church. and to ensure that when we are able to safely reopen again, we will be here to welcome you all back again. We have several ways that we can accept your donations. You can mail your donation to the church office, please no cash. Our church office address is Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, or UUCR will work just fine. 3657 Lemon Street, Riverside, California, 92501. You can also make a digital donation. You can visit our website for a PayPal link at uuchurchofriverside.org/community/donate. If you have a smartphone, you can use the QR code displayed now to go to PayPal. We have a wonderful way to financially support our church at no cost to us and no extra cost to you. Do you shop at Stater Brothers? We have Stater Brothers cards for you for your grocery shopping pleasure that earns our church a percentage of the cost of the card. Please contact Dinah or the church office to purchase Stater Brothers cards. Once more, Dinah's email is ramblin, R-A-M-B-L-I-N, Rose, R-O-E-S, 22@yahoo.com. And the church office email is admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. And finally, one more way to help when making purchases through the Amazon Smile program. Go to smile.amazon.com, be sure to have the smile, and choose Universalist Unitarian Church as your charity. We receive 0.5% of your qualifying purchases, and by using an Amazon script card, we receive a percentage of both. Our next hymn is From You I Receive, provided by the Church of the Larger Fellowship, UU.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live.
Our meditation this morning is pandemic, shut down, wear a mask, it's a hoax. Open the doors, open the schools, close everything, wildfires, derecho in Iowa, everybody votes. Voting fraud. All politicians are crooked, except mine, of course. It can wear anyone out. So many of us were self-isolating in smaller and smaller clusters before March 15th. too angry or afraid to talk to anyone who we thought disagreed with us. It's painful, fearful, divides families, divides friendships. Some beautiful souls find ways to bridge the gap. There is no other way. We fought a civil war with brother against brother, father against son. We can't do that again. We must find a way to talk to each other again. Let us take a moment in silent reflection. Our meditation this morning is Holy Stuff by Reverend Dr. Marilyn Sewell. Father, Mother God, here we are together, rich and poor, educated and not so well educated, gay and straight, Democrats and Republicans, some of us with light skin, some of us with darker, some of us walking, some of us unable to walk, none of us whole as we would like to be. Help us to know that we are all your children and we are all holy stuff. May we be a blessing to the life of anyone who enters this sanctuary. And may this church be a true sanctuary. And may those who come as strangers in turn to help us grow in wisdom, in compassion, and in joy of living. Amen. And now I would like to welcome Grace to read to you the Borden Award-winning sermon as written by the Reverend Jessica Purple Rodela.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The sermon is called, Can't We Get Along? Loving Your Political Opponent. And political, by the way, is in parentheses. It is not the symphony of voices in sweet concert I enjoy, but the cacophony of democracy, the brouhahas and the Donnybrooks, the full-throated roar of the free people busy using their right to freedom of speech. Democracy requires rather a large tolerance for confusion and a secret relish for dissent. This is not a good country for those who are fond of unanimity and uniformity. It's a quote by Molly Ivins. It would be difficult to name our reason for being if the privilege of nonconformity were denied or even threatened among us. By tradition and by practice, we are dissenters. The cause of all dissent is our cause. Quote from Reverend John Haynes Holmes. Some 8 years ago, I had a neighbor, Bruce, who was a dyed-in-the-wool Marine Corps Master Gunnery Sergeant. By his own admission, he fit every stereotype of a bulldog, Rush Limbaugh listening, warmongering, church-loving, God-fearing, homophobic, stentorian arch-conservative. According to Bruce, I am a tree-hugging, Birkenstock-wearing, pinko kami, ACLU, loving liberal. It was natural then that when my son joined Bruce's Boy Scout troop, well, Bruce and I became fast friends. Ours was a friendship that mystified a number of people, especially our spouses. Once a week, the Boy Scouts would meet in my patio while Bruce and I would sit at my kitchen table, drinking coffee, discussing politics, religion, family values. Did I say discuss? Because we put the cuss in discuss. Our well-behaved spouses would retreat into the living room to discuss parenting and the neighbors. When our boys finished their meeting, they'd sit at the windows to eavesdrop, marveling at how such shouted argument could turn so fast into sure laughter. But the only thing that came close to really angering me, frustrating me beyond the bounds of our ability to sit together, to stay at the table with one another in friendship, was Bruce's attitude toward compromise. He claimed that if you compromise, then everyone loses. No one gets what they want. It is this attitude that characterizes the great failure in political debate today, a failure embodied in the practice of partisanship. Partisanship is a committed bias to support one's special group interests above and beyond the wider good. Partisanship can be narrowly justified by loyalty, but it is too often takes the form of my party, do or die, my people, right or wrong. Such an uncompromising, unreasoned attitude is inherently unethical and theologically unsound. Unsound because partisanship presumes dichotomy, and our complex lives transcend the simple dualism of right/wrong, either/or, us/them. And unethical because Unitarian Universalist values require that we work for the common good, that we evaluate with reason, and judge with experience every decision we make. As a Unitarian Universalist, we cannot support the partisan idea that the end justifies the means. For our liberal religion, the means matter. For us, revelation is not sealed, so truth is a process. Ours is a faith of questions, not answers. As such, we practice as spiritual goals resilience and a tolerance for ambiguity and the ability to see simultaneously but differently. Liberals and conservatives tend to see things simultaneously but differently. We see simultaneous ends but with different means. At the core, I found that my goals differ very little from those of my conservative neighbors. Ultimately, we aim to leave this world a better place than when we found it. Where we differ is in radically different views about motivation and method. We differ on why we want to achieve these goals and how we will do so, what we are willing to sacrifice, and how we prioritize the steps or means to achieve the goal. Prioritizing is a key issue in conflict management between cultures. According to something called values orientation theory, there are only 5 universal values. That's 5 big questions about religion, law, finance, and community that all human cultures are driven to explore. That's a lot of commonality. Yet, the vastly different ways we both prioritize and answer those 5 questions lead to interpersonal conflict and can even escalate into international war. The prioritizing of our values indicates what compromises, if any, we will make in order to establish peace. The key to learning to love your opponents, political and otherwise, lies in distinguishing our differences. Perhaps that sounds counterintuitive. The usual approach to learning to get along with one another is by oversimplifying our similarities and ignoring our differences as we declare ourselves one big happy family and we live tolerantly ever after, right? Except it doesn't work that way. Instead, We easily see the destination we have in common, but when we disagree on how to get there, we feel mystified, even betrayed at how mistaken our new friend can be, because they seemed so intelligent. And if they just weren't so stubborn or misinformed or selfish, then they would see the light and we could get back to agreeing about how right I am. This cycle of events is repeated over and over again in heated family disagreements, in neighborhood circles, and even in our own church lobby. The failure to distinguish our divisions asks for inappropriate compromise. It tempts us to set aside differences instead of engaging them. We stand to learn far more from one another in investigating the boundaries of our differences than had we tried to design each and every meeting, every initiative, or every worship service as one size fits all. And such weak-kneed spirituality will lull our souls to sleep. When we encounter our perceived opponents and take the opportunity to engage with our differences, either in the world or within the walls of this church, our cherished assumptions are challenged. Divulging our differences requires that we better articulate our positions and forces us to consider creative options we cannot see when we take a stand, only to face a mirror. Diversity enriches us by increasing our effectiveness in problem solving by widening our field of vision. In the martial art practice of Taekwondo, a master turns his body with the force of his opponent's attack to gain leverage and advantage. Your opponent's agenda can be your own best friend. History is full of ironies where the unexpected gift of an opponent serves what seems to be an opposite agenda. Who remembers that it was Richard Nixon who established the Environmental Protection Agency, reasoning that it was good for business? And it was Democrat Bill Clinton who became the conservative's best friend when he signed welfare reform into effect. Clinton, who my husband deems the best Republican president we ever had. Will anyone but my family member remember my cousin Marcus, a well-respected Army officer who registered as a conscientious objector while on active duty to protest our war in Iraq? Whether today or tomorrow we deem these actions in triumph or defeat, they serve as examples of why we must be willing and hopeful in working with those we oppose. The promise and potential of working together lies in our willingness to remember to ask questions and stick around long enough to listen to the answers. That's all. It means when we talk, we do so with curiosity and compassion. It's about respect. Educator Sharon Welch writes, "By respect, we do not mean agreement, but taking someone so seriously that you ask them why they think as they do. We have to stay at the table with one another, even when it is discouraging or baffling or inconvenient, because diversity of opinions promotes dialogue. Without dialogue, there is no communication. Without communication, there is no education. Without education, there is no transformation." A case in point. When the Boy Scouts of America began blatant discrimination against Unitarian Universalists in general, and against homosexuals in particular, my first reaction was to take my boys and go home. But without families like mine, the Boy Scouts of America would have no dialogue partner. They would be freed from our decent dissent. They would never change their policies because they would never have them challenged. So we were prepared, just like good scouting parents are told to be, when at a parents' meeting, that uncompromising scout leader, my friend Bruce, declared loudly that should the scouts deem homosexuals as fit leaders, that would be the day he quits. And we'll just see what happens to this troop when men like me refuse to lead. Without hesitation, my husband replied, "Well then, men like me We'll leave them, he said, with quiet firmness. And this troop will continue with or without you. And with that dozen words of dissent, the assumption and agenda in the room dissolved. As disconcerting as conflict might feel, if we court only the like-minded, we stand no moderating influence, no witness to oppression. I suspect you agree with me so far. That's all very well and good, you might say, but why must we do so in church? I say to you that it is especially important to grapple with our differences in our churches, and especially appropriate for us as Unitarian Universalists, because our politics reflects our values, and values create our religion. It is inescapable, even fitting, that these conflicts surface at church. That we employ separation of church and state is a necessary social evolution for a pluralistic community, but it does not negate the fact that religion is political. To separate religion from politics renders religion irrelevant and politics lethal. Every one of our 7 principles is a political statement, a paradigm of our values and beliefs. We do not turn to liberal religion in order to be told what to do, but rather to be shown how to see. And we cannot, must not, learn where to look by only gazing at our own navels. If we create a church community as a monolith to agreement, we remove the checks and balances vital to our own spiritual growth, and we rot in the stagnant pond of our assumptions. We stifle creativity when we are not called to the challenge. To practice choice, we have to be faced with something other than ourselves. As Sharon Welch writes, we need each other to be moral. As Unitarian Universalists, our tradition enjoins us to a prophetic imperative. We affirm that theology is practice. Service is its prayer. Our religion is social action. We stand for, work for, vote for justice, equity, and compassion. And the practical application of our faith is often expressed in our practice of politics. Legendary minister and pacifist John Haynes Holmes climbed into his pulpit on the eve of World War I, knowing that he could lose his livelihood, knowing he was jeopardizing all he'd ever worked for. In the politics of the time, his views were considered treasonous. He delivered a fiery sermon denouncing this and all war as anti-Christian. And instead of a call for arms, he calls for alms, reconciliation, brotherhood. The congregation responded with stunned silence, and Holmes left the pulpit for what he expected would be the last time. The board president called an emergency meeting. The church board took 2 votes that evening. First, they unanimously condemned their minister's pacifism, declaring it to be dangerous, wrong-headed, even treasonous. Second, they voted unanimously that, wrong-headed or not, John Haynes Holmes had an obligation to speak his mind. As Unitarians, they held dear our continuing tradition for right of conscience as expressed in our practice of freedom of the pulpit. A freedom that denies and defeats any possibility of succumbing to the tyranny of the majority. A freedom that recognizes a single dissenting voice as vital to the democratic process of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our oft-cited freedom in our faith extends to our freedom of its expression. During annual commitment campaigns, you hear the challenge, let your checkbook reflect your values. I extend that challenge today to let the check boxes on the ballot reflect your religious values as members of a liberal faith community? As Unitarian Universalists, our 7 principles require that we use the democratic process in ways that promote acceptance, spiritual growth, free and responsible search for truth and meaning, peace, liberty, and justice for all. We affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person and thus uphold each one's right of conscience. But in doing so, we do not seek a collective conscience, nor does it imply that we must never take a public stand on controversial social issues. Our covenant guides us in how we make a decision as a community, rather than pointing to the decision itself. Our covenant to walk together guides our process, not the content. Our devotion to diversity guarantees that our parent organization, the Unitarian Universalist Association, will make public sweeping statements that I and other clergy may disagree with. It guarantees that from this pulpit, today or tomorrow, you will hear messages from clergy you profoundly disagree with. Our promise of pluralism guarantees that this church institution will vote to take public stands that threaten or offend you. And for all that, I and you and they must, as Unitarian Universalists, stay at the table, because this is about conversation, not consensus. Conflict is inevitable. It is part and parcel of the design of our free faith community, bound together not by creed, but by covenant. And by courting that difference, by hosting it here in our beloved community, we are informed and transformed by diversity. There is fear, I know, a legitimate fear, that if the UU Church takes public stands on social issues, it will cost us in membership and in pledge money. But I guarantee, and our history guarantees, that if you think it costly to take a stand, the costs of not taking one are far higher. We can choose to turn from or learn from adversity, but we can only do that if we consent to conflict. And in today's fearful national climate, it is more important than ever that we be willing to stand up for our right to a decent dissent. In his time, the Reverend John Haynes Holmes was vilified for his pacifism. Today, we acclaim Holmes as prophet and hero. He is. But I also acclaim that brave church board who had the moral courage to vote their religious values above their partisan views, and despite looming congregational conflict. In doing so, they created a compromise through covenant, declaring that by staying in relationship with our political opponents, we get along much better. In such a compromise, all of us win. This is our legacy. This is Unitarian Universalism.
Our closing hymn is Gather the Spirit. Please rise in spirit and join us.
Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once
For our benediction, please close your eyes and reach out to each other in your thoughts. Feel the connection between us, the interconnected web joining us as a community, a church family. Our benediction is to soulfully survive the world's mayhem, by Reverend Heather Ryan Starr. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Sunday afternoon help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope, beauty, and fun in this world, our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to soulfully survive the world's mayhem. Amen, shalom, and blessed be.
Joining us. As I said, here are the all the contact information that was mentioned during the announcements. So any information that you need, go ahead and take down. We've got the church website, the board press, email. And then for those of you that have signed up for chat time, I am not sure, Bonnie, is Lee leading our chat time today?
No, he just let me know he's not able to.
Okay. All right, then we will close out now, and I will create a chat time Zoom and email out the information to everybody who registers. See you guys there. Thanks for coming. Bye.